Okay, hello. Now we'll talk about an architect who is very famous, and we'll try to add something to his fame with this homage to him on the day when he was born, May 12th in 1946. I hope I'm not mistaken that he was indeed born on May 12th. Let's read a little bit about Daniel Libeskind. As you can see, yes, born May 12th, Daniel Libeskind is a Polish-American architect, artist, professor, and set designer. Libeskind founded Studio Daniel Libeskind in 1989 with his wife Nina and is its principal design architect. He's known for the design and completion of the Jewish Museum in Berlin, in Germany, that opened in 2001. On February 27, 2003, Libeskind received further international attention after he won the competition to be the master plan architect for the reconstruction of the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan, although in the end it was not him who built the World Trade Center, but SOM with David Child. Just a second, I need to read a little more about him. Unfortunately, there is here a tab which interrupts and it's exasperating. It shortens my life. It covers, you don't see it, but I see it. I can't read the first line because there is a message from Zoom which says you are screen sharing and stop share, and it covers the first line. I cannot read it. I can only read other buildings that, and then I see extension to the Denver Art Museum in the United States, the Grand Canal Theatre in Dublin, the Imperial War Museum North in Greater Manchester, England, the Michael Lee Chin Crystal at the Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto, Canada, the Felix Nussbaum House in Osnabrück, Germany, the Danish Jewish Museum in Copenhagen, Denmark, Reflections in Singapore, and the Vol Center at the Bar Ilan University, Ramat Gan, Israel. His portfolio also includes several residential projects. Libeskind's work has been exhibited in major museums and galleries around the world, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Bauhaus Archives, the Art Institute of Chicago, and Centre Georges Pompidou, and of course, the Venice Biennial, which is not mentioned here. Apparently, he was a virtuoso of the accordion or the harmonica, and you see him as a kid here enjoying himself playing the accordion. I read that he actually gave up the accordion because he became a virtuoso and he wanted to challenge himself with something else, and that's why he became he studied architecture at Cooper Union in New York. Here he is in his later age, contemplating a world that celebrated him a lot. So what can we say? An unusual biography. Born in Krakow in Poland, and then leaving Europe for the United States, earning a degree in architecture at the school that was directed by John Haydock, and he became actually the darling of John Haydock. Then he moved to Cranbrook Academy in the position of, I don't know, director of studies or director of the architecture art program. And then we are going to see his first project, which made him instantly, a major force in architecture, although it was not built, a housing complex in Berlin. And now his office is in Berlin, he lives in Berlin, and he works in Berlin. Daniel Libeskind with his wife, enjoying themselves. They have all the reasons to enjoy themselves because, yes, it was a very successful journey so far for both of them, and the architecture of Daniel Libeskind is, continuing to provoke us. some drawings. These are some drawings that at one point I wrote against. Now I have maybe different thoughts. Very intricate, but I felt at that time when I wrote against them that they were cold, some kind of, robotic Frédéric Chopin. But looking backwards, I see virtues in them. He has interesting artworks, and we are going to see some of them. These are some sketches probably for that preceded his project for the Jewish Museum in Berlin. Good graphic works. But he was also lucky that he studied at Cooper Union in New York, which was a very open-minded school, and still is. And the education of an architect at Cooper Union was very different from most other schools. Unfortunately, in my opinion, he also was a little bit opportunistic, like in the case of his proposals for World Trade Center. But I guess some opportunism is necessary in order to get the commissions. You see the lady, the Lady Liberty and Manhattan, and sketches for the rejuvenation, renewal of the area where the World Trade, the Twin Towers fell to the ground. Very good graphic works. This kind of architecture is his trademark, his signature architecture, although sometimes he builds differently, but most of the time you can recognize a building by Daniel Libeskind because of this kind of triangular deconstruction. This is the project that brought him to the attention of the international audience. The City Edge competition, Potsdamer Platz in Berlin from 1993, so almost 30 years ago. And a most unusual housing complex, which tried to evoke, the drama of Berlin. And was he in search for some kind of a narrative architecture? Perhaps. Just like Zaha Hadid, who won the Peak competition in Hong Kong. Around that time, I'm wrong. Actually, Zaha Hadid won that competition about 10 years earlier. But it's not an accident that Zaha Hadid and Daniel Libeskind were both members of the 7, not samurai, but the 7 deconstructivists who showed their work at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Around that time, 1993, 1992, 1994. So this was a competition entry, and he did a work that even by today's standards seems, alarmingly different, not to say, not to call it in some other way. I mean, that's not how usually architects design a housing complex. And the plan, the site plan. A reaction to an urban context and a reaction to the history of Berlin, not attempting to hide the drama of that city. And so, his work is intensely externalizing, that drama that better be faced than hidden. Now, the Jewish Museum in Berlin, which you probably know, is a work that consolidated his, international status or stature. And I visited it. Many people visited it. Of course, you see the old building, and he did also the roofing here above the courtyard of the old building. But his Jewish museum, his signature Jewish museum is this part of the building, but they are connected, the two. Not far from this building is there are three buildings built by John Haydock, his professor, maybe his mentor for a while. But the prodigy, the student became more famous than the professor, and maybe that's how it should be. Maybe. Anyway, the Jewish Museum in Berlin, it has a very large number of different or distinct windows. I read that, I don't know, either probably 11,000. 1,000 seems to be a small number. Maybe I'm wrong, but whatever, 1,000 or 11,000 is still a large number of, idiosyncratically different windows. They are graphic, incisions in the flesh of the building. Yes, the building is the description in a way of the tragedy of the Jews who, suffered immensely in the Second World War, and not only then. And look at this building, the old building, all sure of itself, so-called classical, stable, unquestioning. Well, the building by Libeskind is protesting, and that's he wanted to make a building that says no, that protests. This is the plan of the building. And this is the Paul Celan courtyard, a very important poet. I think on Wikipedia he is presented in a incredible vicinity. Goethe and Hölderlin and Paul Celan, born in Chisinau. Who lost all his family during the Second World War in concentration camps, and he himself threw himself from a bridge at 50 into the River Seine in Paris. But a major poet, very highly considered. Somebody who worked for Daniel Libeskind told me that there are plenty of books in the office of Daniel Libeskind, and they were allowed, even invited, to open books, to read, to comment on them, discuss them, and so on. That like the book was very present in the activity of the office. The Jewish Museum, Daniel Libeskind. The National Holocaust Monument by Daniel Libeskind in Ottawa, Canada. It's a project here, but he did build it. Zhangji Donggan Modern Industrial Museum. This one is rather burlesque. I don't think it's one of his major works. I almost regret it was built. Sorry for the maliciousness of the statement, but I don't think he's so good with curves. And he assumed the curve all of a sudden. I don't know why. That's why I think the building is rather burlesque. Lots of steel there. It's certainly not a sustainable building, but at the time when it was built, there was a concern for sustainability. And yes, in general, Daniel Libeskind is not a sustainable architect. I don't think he will change. I think he will continue to build in this way. Doesn't matter what. Here is the power of his work and also the weakness, actually. But he's also, a philosopher. As you can see, he was thinking of various issues. Although I think graphically this work is not as interesting or powerful as some other drawings we saw by him, nor these sketches. I find them rather didactic and even timid, despite the bonanza of the forms. Again, I don't think this work is one of his best, but he built it. Centre de Congrès à Mons in Belgium. Now, this is a typical Libeskind building. Several of his buildings have this, audacious triangle which seems to pierce the sky. Maybe too conveniently. I mean, there is a certain level of exhibitionism here and of, not quite, I mean, acrobatics sometimes are adding something to a building, but when they repeat themselves almost obsessively, you begin to get tired of such acrobatic architectonic gestures. Otherwise, the building is not very, acrobatic, to repeat the word, but is in that corner is repeating actually himself. Now, this pavilion built in Milan is rather interesting because he tried to create a pavilion that evokes a dragon. And being the China pavilion, the Chinese pavilion, I guess it works. This is the plan of the pavilion in Milan. Was some kind of an international event, an expo, a world expo. And you are going to see pictures a bit outside. I have a problem with this building. It's indeed dragon-like, but not the top part and not these floors. But I understand, humans like to walk on horizontal slabs. But at the top, the dragon is simply, killed in this rather uninspired way. This flat roof doesn't quite work well with the building as it appears from the eye of the level of the eye. And you are going to see the building. Here it is. I like it if I make abstraction of the flat roof. There is a problem, I would say, but in nature, things are not like this. Even in the metaphysical nature, you don't cut an organic entity in this way, unless That's your intention, to cut it like this, to make a statement. But I like the skin of the building very much, and the color, and it works with its naming and its purpose, and it works with China. Daniel Libeskind in Milan, a rendering. Well, I don't even know why it was built, because the rendering is almost as if it is photographed. The built work, but it's just a rendering. Look at the structure, the steel structure. Not bad. Contorted, some people struggle to do it this way, but maybe it was worth it. Yankee Pavilion. And the inside. A very rigorous work here, although it is playful, ludic, but each piece has different graphics on it, and to assemble all of them rigorously, but also freely, without digital technology would be impossible, probably, or very close to impossible. The dragon. Serpentine Gallery in London. His beloved astute triangle, zinc, probably covered in zinc, just like his Jewish museum in Berlin. The new Lithuanian Modern Art Center, a project which he didn't build. And here he is with the clients, some Lithuanians, unveiling the work with a god staring at his own work. Rather white and placid compared to some other works by him. The Kurdistan Museum in Erbil, here he's more himself, so to speak. The tower in Jerusalem, which I find problematic. I hope he is not building it. He will not build it. Here it is. Gone is deconstruction. But then we saw something not quite different in spirit by Herzog and de Meuron for Paris. But look at the base of the building. It's almost. It's very conventional, classicist, historicist. It's bothering that a genuine deconstructivist to do something like this. Is it a modest building? Of course not. In a certain way, but no, his first project, that housing project in Berlin, was not modest either, but at least there was some kind of protesting. Here is, I don't know, it's just, between this and that hotel in the capital of North Korea, it's a very short distance. The artist is supposed to fight for freedom and equality, democracy, non-conventionality. And here we see a structure which seems to advocate centralized power. It's a sign of a centralized power, if not authoritarian power. Very, very questionable work by Daniel Libeskind. I wonder what Dr. Freud might have said about this change. Vilnius Beacon, another project that was not built. And the sketch with his nervous signature. And here he is enjoying himself together with some people from Vilnius. He's wearing those cowboy boots that he enjoys so much with, made of lizard leather. Very strange, a Polish young man, born in Krakow, going to the United States and sporting now cowboy boots made of lizard. He enjoys himself. He's probably a nice man. Casa Origami, he built it. Here it is. Destabilizing, but not in the bedroom. And we are going to see the bedroom, and you will understand what I'm trying to say. The house, yes, is creating that instability, which some people think is very, auspicious for living dangerously. But you wonder how real that danger really is. And yes, the building is angular and, angst-ridden and, destabilizing. But the bedroom, let's hope I have an image of the bedroom, of the master bedroom. Otherwise, of course, you have a library and you have books and, you have slanted surfaces and so, but again, we are going to arrive, I hope, to the bedroom. Here it is. Now, I'm very sorry, but when I see this bed, triumphalist as it is, with perfect symmetry, with those two lamps left and right, and not to speak about the pathetic material. Now you could say he didn't design, or he was not responsible for the material of the cover of the bed, but I'm not sure that he didn't know about it. I like to imagine that he was aware of what was going on in the building. This I also noticed in a very Dionysian work by Frank Gehry, that hotel in Spain, in the proximity of winemaking, where also the inside has nothing to do with the outside. And when I look at this, I don't know, king size or queen size bed, with its petit bourgeois covering and those golden lights left and right, and I just don't understand. It's as if some bourgeois longings cannot be banished. You make the building dramatic, angular, constructivist or deconstructivist, and then you bring this, king size bed in the bedroom that makes you totally forget the instabilities of deconstruction. I mean, look at the plan of the building and look at the bed with those two pillows and the perfectly symmetrical, golden lights on the nightstands. Incredible. It's just incredible. And look at that triangular thing, that is piercing the horizon and the sky and even the tree, with its audacious blackness and its almost malicious elan, and then here. And you even wonder what is his true nature actually. But that bed actually connects to that inappropriate pyramid he proposed for Jerusalem, I would say. Otherwise, of course, it's interesting, a large sofas, so you can have lux, calme, voluptede. Well, not so much calm because of the clashing forms, but if you get tired of clashing forms, you jump in the king size bed and you forget about that angst. Look, the bed is at the end of the corridor. I wonder again what Dr. Freud would have said, or Jacques Lacan. Museum, this is an early work by him, and it's not a bad work for a painter, Felix Nussbaum. House, the museum, the Felix Nussbaum house in Osnabrück in Germany, an early work by him. I almost had the chance to have an exhibition here with the entries for a competition. I launched a house for Albrecht Dürer. It was to be in Osnabrück, but it didn't happen in the end. At least here he uses wood, which is a nice change. Otherwise, the graphics of the windows are like in the Jewish museum, in a way too conveniently. But there are some particulars here, some changes compared to the museum in Berlin, the Jewish museum. Libeskind in New York. Here he is. On the left, the mayor. On the right, the governor of New York. And him explaining how the tower, the World Trade Center should be built. And plenty of paparazzis around, these terrorists with cameras, as Andrei Codrescu would call them, not by tourists, but almost there, photographing the famous work. In the end, he didn't build it. It was David Childs from SOM who built the new World Trade Center. But again, here is Daniel Libeskind, and on the left, Bloomberg, the mayor of New York, and on the right, the governor of the state of New York. It lasted for a long time, the implementation of the works in that area. And here they are. On the left, Fumihiko Maki, the Japanese architect, the more discreet figure in this. This is a developer. I forgot his name, although he's very famous. The gods will probably never forgive me for not remembering his name. The governor of New York, the very pleased. You even wonder, how could people smile so happily? Here is Mr. Foster, Sir Norman Foster and Sir Richard Rogers. They all smile, forgetting the incredible tragedy that happened at the World Trade Center. No, I mean, I don't understand. They are having a party here, but more than 3,000 people died. The towers fell, and they are having fun. The only one who is more discreet and more serious is Fumihiko Maki. Bravo to him. But the others, they sadden me. They really do. And this is what he proposed. It was not be like this. He was, playing with, historical important data of the United States, and but so explicitly opportunistic. I wish he didn't do this project. Well, in the end, it was not built, and it was built, this tower, by SOM and David Childs. That's it. But he had a role in activating. Here, of course, was supposed to be, Bjarke Ingels. He didn't build his tower either, but he had to. He couldn't miss the boat. Although I'm not very sure, maybe another architect, because I think I could be wrong, but Bjarke Ingels also proposed something I think this was supposed to be was supposed to be his work, the archangels. Anyway, towers with glass and glass and glass, and no window that opens. Just the towers of glass, consuming immense amounts of energy, because you can imagine in the summer you melt down there, and in the winter, if there is still going to be winter, you freeze. And I don't know, it actually saddens me when you consider the tragedy of that event, no? September 11th. And then you see the frivolousness of the architects, playing around, all smiling and happy. It's almost like dancing on grapes. And the tower, as it was built by SOM and David Childs, the designer, and the sketch by Libeskind for the tower that he proposed. And here he is with the books around him, and I like the fact that he has books around him. That's very nice. And you can also contemplate his famous cowboy boots made of lizard leather. He made it. That's the truth. He made it. The Denver Museum of Art, another signature work by him. A deja vu. We already saw this kind of, elongated triangle that pierces even the skin of Zeus, and beyond Zeus. Uh, I don't. I mean, yes, I agree that art should be a destabilizing force, but when it repeats its rhetorics so explicitly, it becomes actually stabilizing, not destabilizing. I think other people too are questioning the validity of this rather simplistic and almost unfelt expressionism, because it's not really an expressionism. It mimics expressionism. Sorry for being critical of Daniel Libeskind on his birthday, but this is what I think and feel. He can do better. And sometimes he did better. But in some other works, he just repeats architectural gestures that could be questioned. Let's read what he says. Life, it is not just a series of calculations and the sum total of statistics. It's about experience. It's about participation. It is something more complex and more interesting than what is obvious. Obviously, yes. But he has a young smile for someone who is probably at least 60. Architecture is not based on concrete and steel and the elements of the soil. It's based on wonder. Nice, no? But we wonder, are we really wondering? Not often. Yes, you made it. Where is the accordion? Please play something on the accordion, Mr. Libeskind, for us on your birthday. Please do so. His office in Berlin, Museum of Contemporary Art in Milan, reminding one of the of the Chinese pavilion that he designed. But this would have been an Italian dragon. It was not built. But don't worry, he built other things, and he builds continuously all over the world. Leonardo, Crystals for MGM Mirage City Center, Las Vegas. This is another work which I wish he didn't build, because I don't think we can learn anything from Las Vegas. Sorry, Mr. Venturi. I don't think we can learn. Well, we can learn something. That is how not to build and how not to live. You know, to elevate the rank, the stature of some kind of an existential model. Las Vegas is to say that. Wait a minute, the terminal of all human activity is losing your money in the casino. So he built this thing, which is a giant mall. But as Andrei Codrescu said, we replaced the Berlin Wall with the Berlin Mall. So the mall is the mall, the supreme proof of our independence of thought and action. The supreme model of existence is shopping sufficient raison d'etre? I don't think so. And this tumultuousness is, in my opinion, very frivolous. Where people with money go there, and there are probably very expensive designer little shops there, where a belt costs 2,000 or 5,000 euros or dollars. It actually saddens me, because an architect or an artist is supposed to keep a certain distance from this excessive consumerism, and he doesn't. Well, I guess if I was in his place, maybe it would have been irresistible, no? Because the mirage of riches and so-called success are hard to oppose, I guess. But I would hope to see some people with success who turn their back on this slavery towards money. Las Vegas. Everybody knows what Las Vegas is now. It's a place where, the humans lose themselves. Not creatively, though. But I know that Dostoevsky himself lost money at the roulette, at the casino. So, and I did too one day. Maybe that's why I talk so bitterly now against Las Vegas. Look at this staircase, you say it's staircase to heaven, stairs to heaven. It's not to heaven. It's to the belt made by Prada that costs 4,000 euros, and then look at that silhouette on the wall, with her dress, opened there where it shouldn't be opened, if you allow me to be moralistic. It's this seductiveness that is of course, he is not responsible with the graphics on the walls, but he is responsible for this, suspiciously sweet staircase, with pink and some ornaments on the steps, and it's just horrid. Actually, I consider it horrid. Sorry. Las Vegas. And what is that? The deterioration of Russian constructivism into the consumerism of the of a so-called city like Las Vegas that doesn't find other preoccupations worthy of its attention than playing in casinos, where I learned they increase the level of ozone in order to make you feel omnipotent. So you would lose your money thinking that you can conquer everything in the world because there is an excessive ozone. That's what they do in casinos, I learned. But when the president of a country who also owns casinos is or was, what do you expect? Las Vegas is is a, a quotable city, even by architects like Robert Venturi. Learning from Las Vegas. There is nothing to learn from Las Vegas. I'm sorry, Mr. Venturi. You were wrong. But that's where he built Libeskind too. And others, towers. All these towers are the towers of lying. All these towers are built with the money stolen from the naive people who play in the casinos. And how else do you think they were built? And look at this, talking about sustainability, right? The icebergs are melting, the sea levels is rising. There is an incredible pollution in the world. There are hundreds of millions of people who have nothing to eat or very little. And look the excesses of electricity here. I mean, the amount of consumed electrical and otherwise is unbelievable. It's hard not to see the world in apocalyptical terms, contemplating the skyline and at night or during the day of Las Vegas, but not only Las Vegas. Strangely, there are people, even intellectuals, even artists, who love Las Vegas, including the faculty of SciArc in Los Angeles. I saw projects done in Los Angeles and they were very admired because of the great thing that this city is. It's nothing great here. I'm very sorry. It's just delusion. Phantasmagoria. It's not idealism here. It's the very opposite of idealism. All this, if we are to call it a city, was built with only one purpose: to milk as much money from the adoring naivete of so many people. Origami Swan, yes, it's an origami, I guess. Yakov Chernikov, I presented him a few days ago, but with a different spelling. Instead of I used a Y, but it's the same man, Yakov Chernikov, constructivist, who inspired Libeskind, but inspired also Bernard Tschumi and others. Kurdistan Museum in Iraq, he didn't build it, but he made a project. The pyramid in Jerusalem, we saw it. Let's hope it will never be built, because I find it pathetical, really. A historicist pyramid like that, maybe Philip Johnson could have done it, but I didn't expect this from the so-called deconstructivist Daniel Libeskind. Look, this is in North Korea, right? Well, what's the difference between this and this? Not much, really. It's about the same thing, except that here you have some lights on and here you don't, because who knows for what reasons. Essentially, it's the same thing. And even Herzog and de Meuron have had in Paris longings for something not dissimilar. The project, the sketches for the World Trade Center, and here he is again smiling at us. Yes, you made it. It's hard not to envy you, Mr. Libeskind, but not everything you do is great. I'm sorry. Although your smile probably is acceptable as a sign of of wonder, maybe. Royal Ontario Museum in Toronto. This work I like more than other works by him, although it's the same signature aesthetics, but it has a verve. It's vivacious, and in contrast with the old building, because he's good at this, where there is a dialectical tension between an existing old classicist, whatever, historicist building, and his interventions that climb over the building and cut it in two and so on. I guess. Yeah, but if you saw this several times or many times, it becomes less powerful and less interesting. Yet in this case, I'm happy he built it. But when he repeats the same forms in Los Angeles for a very different function, you wonder, But shouldn't there be a difference between a museum, meaning culture, and a mall, meaning commerce? I think there should be. And yet, again, this building I like more than most of his other works. This one also probably has a few hundreds, if not a few thousands, individualized windows, but that's not the point. At night, anything goes. And here is the sketch, which we already saw earlier. Winning design for Canadian National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa, and it was built. Here I think I have only the project. This work though, which I saw it actually, the Cincinnati, I saw it from far away, but I saw it. I like actually this apartment building in Cincinnati, Ohio by Daniel Libeskind. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe sometimes he is not so bad with curves. There is a curvature here, which is acceptable to say the least. I like this building by him in Cincinnati. I don't know about that glass at the top though. I don't know. I don't know what's happening underneath that glass, but I guess there are no infiltrations of water. Although they happen everywhere in the world, doesn't matter how developed the country or not developed. At the last floor, sometimes water enters the building. As it entered the falling water building, the famous house built by Frank Lloyd Wright. And I mentioned this some other time that apparently at one night, Frank Lloyd Wright received a telephone call from Mr. Kaufman, the inhabitant of the falling water, telling him, Frank, it's raining in the living room. And Frank frankly told him that you don't have a pot. That's what apparently Frank Lloyd Wright told Mr. Kaufman, his client, his former client, and his, the inhabitant of the building. You don't have a pot. Very, very vertical, Frank Lloyd Wright. Now, of course, this building in Cincinnati by Daniel Libeskind doesn't comment in any way about the criminality of Cincinnati and the social problems they have. And that when I visited the city for a day, there were 14,000. Again, I like in the case of the windows of the Holocaust Museum, it was 14,000 or 1,400 condemned buildings. A strange reality in the North American cities. It's a good building, but just like the splendid arch built by Saarinen in St. Louis doesn't comment on the high criminality of St. Louis. This, mundane success by Daniel Libeskind doesn't comment on the problems of Cincinnati either. Architects are usually facing truth only sporadically and partially. They enjoy their art if they can, but they don't comment on social problems or political problems. The building, I guess, is okay, but Keppel Bay, Singapore. Now, it's my opinion, and I stand by it, but I might infuriate some people. In my opinion, he is not good at building skyscrapers. The thrill of wealth. Now, what do we see here? The idyllic waterfront living by the marina that Daniel Libeskind built, while wearing, of course, his cowboy boots with leather made of a lizard, a killed lizard. What do we see? What do we see on the boat? A happy pair prior to the divorce. But this is the happy moment. Now, so happy, in fact, that the lady even lost one shoe in the process of externalizing her happiness, looking at the rather pathetic towers by Daniel Libeskind. Here they are. Someone told me who visited Singapore, I didn't, that they're actually not bad. But what I saw in magazines, in photographs, I don't know, for me, this kind of flaccid towers make me discouraged, not encouraged. They are, or am I changing? They say that you become what you hate. Now I'm a little bit less acid in my criticism. But I remember, I was quoting from myself, actually, when I criticized these towers. Now, yes, maybe I'm getting older and, I have less virulence in my criticism. I do think that Daniel Libeskind doesn't quite know how to build a tower. Or am I wrong? Now I'm beginning to bite my own tail. Would I want to live in one of these towers as they are? I'm not sure. On the other hand, Singapore, the Switzerland of Southeast Asia, a very rich little country. But there is some poverty there too, with people sleeping at the bottom, in the shadow of the big trees. Anyway, and this is the sketch of Daniel Libeskind, and this is the result of the sketches. I like the expression on his face, and even his hand, is meditative. And I like even more the cover of the only book that is oriented towards us, and that is Edgar Allan Poe, right here. So the former student at Cooper Union didn't betray his upbringing. It's a pleasure, actually, to see a book with poems by Edgar Allan Poe in the office of an architect. I don't think too many architects have such books in their offices, and certainly not poetry by Edgar Allan Poe oriented towards, the viewer. On the other hand, you ask yourself, what does Edgar Allan Poe have to do with his beautiful poem, The Raven, with this? And this is real estate bonanza, right? They built it, the millions were produced, the success is there, you know, uh, the finger, the fat and short finger is up towards the sky. The money came in, everybody's happy. But what about Edgar Allan Poe, who died miserably around 40 and wrote that beautiful, very moving but dark poem, The Revel? Questions, questions, and paradoxes. Maybe even incongruencies. Now, if I look at this drawing, again, I become alarmed about these skyscrapers, which are flaccid. That's how I call them. They are flaccid, you know, and I'm not promoting in any way, phallic verticality ad literam, but these affectations, you know, these I find them unconvincing for some reason. Yes, Mr. Libeskind, happy birthday to you. Cabin, metro, hotel, drama in a cup of tea. Hotel, cabin, metro. You can imagine how much a room there costs. Glass, glass, and glass again. And the boots of the creator made of lizard leather. I wonder, you know, I wonder. And he's not a cowboy, but then a cowboy would not wear cowboy boots, so-called cowboy boots made of lizard leather. No, it's a fetish. No, it's the fetishization of shoes is a phenomenon that is, you know, closely studied by psychoanalysis. Sonnets of Babylon, which I saw this work, his participation at the Venice Biennial, and I liked it. I actually liked it very much. I don't know exactly how he did all these works, these graphic works. Maybe he did them himself or some with some people and enlarged them, but they are nice. Um, I don't know exactly the symbolism. I read a little bit, but I don't. I didn't quite get it, but I like them as graphic works. And yes, they were part of the Venice Biennial. I don't know, in 2016 or even earlier, maybe. Yes, these are good works. Graphically, I think they are enticing and they stir up curiosity. Well, we are back in Canada. Just a few more images before we close shop, before we end. And here he is again. And I mean, here he is now, although we don't see his head. And here we see him as a child with the harmonica or the accordion in 1955 in Krakow, in Poland. Did he imagine at that time when he was playing the accordion how his life would be? Probably not. But you see how life is, you know, you play the accordion and I don't know, he was then around 10 years old. And now he's, you know, one of the stars of the architecture pantheon. And he's highly successful and polished and ornated lizard cowboy boots only prove it. So this is what he said: developing architecture beyond the traditional tautologies we are given historically, an architecture that is dynamic, and moving forward and operating in a new set of interests that are not just old modernist interests, but have to do with history, culture, literature, philosophy, with art in general. Yes, with art in general. It is an exploration of creativity and the humanistic tradition of architecture, which means that architecture is, of course, a scientific field, a technical field, but it is equally part of the humanities in the sense of ideas, philosophy, literature, poetry, geometry, astronomy, and so on. And Architizer or architizers ask him, what is your advice for young architects who might be in this experimental stage now as they progress towards or to bigger projects and spaces? And this is what Daniel Libeskind said. Take the risk. Don't just get involved in the buildings, but pursue your ideas for your development, even if it doesn't just have an immediate application. At the same time, I think that experiment is really fantastic because it does lead you, if you follow that path very rigorously and in a very disciplined way. I put a great value on this. Actually, I wouldn't call it experimental because experimental is more scientific. It either works or it doesn't. I would call it more of an adventure in the pursuit of your passion for architecture. Let's read this phrase again. I would call it more of an adventure in the pursuit of your passion for architecture. And that will certainly lead you, if you are not surrounded by cynics, but by people who share your ideas and discuss them with you, is the best way to lead young architects to fantastic things. Daniel Libeskind is an optimist architect. I always tell young architects, pursue what you dream about. Don't be discouraged by cynics or skeptics. Surround yourself with interesting people. Keep going. You just have to have passions. There is no rush. It's not about quantity, it's about quality, in my life anyway. I have been lucky. I could have expanded and doubled the amount of people in his office. We had so many projects, but I said, no, let's not expand. Let's keep it so it's about architecture and not mass production. If I was not working on every project, if I was not involved fully, I wouldn't want to do it. It wouldn't be fun. That's it. So let's wish him happy birthday and let's talk a little bit about him, if you don't mind.